There are a whopping 25 Christmas episodes in the entire history of The Simpsons, and today we are ranking every single one. Now, I used to live and breathe The Simpsons. Every day I'd come home from school, I'd have tea, sit down at 6 o'clock and watch an episode of The Simpsons on Channel 4. I haven't watched The Simpsons in several years, so there are definitely a lot of episodes that I have never seen before. And I'm also interested to see what these later seasons of The Simpsons are like, considering I've not heard great things from other people. This ranking is going to be completely biased. It's going to be going from my least favourite episode to my favourite episode. And also at the end of the episode, I'm going to be talking about the new two-parter Christmas special that The Simpsons are releasing this year on Disney+. So make sure to stick around to see where that fits in. Alright, without further ado, let's go.
I've still gotta bake my Christmas pie.
You may be surprised to hear that the episode I ranked last actually is pretty good. Except for the fact it has absolutely nothing to do with Christmas. What are we doing here, guys? There is no connection to Christmas in any way. The only thing Christmassy about it is the couch gag. All the episode is about is Lisa and Mr. Burns having a bit of a feud about saving the bees. I'm just baffled. Despite it being a regular good episode, I can't put it very highly because there's nothing to do with Christmas. There's even a Wally reference, and I like Wally. But even he can't save this. Unfortunately, that means that this episode is going in dead last place. But surely that's it, right? There's not going to be another episode on this list that has nothing to do with Christmas, right?
I've gotta get Dad a lousy tie.
Well, I was wrong. No, this episode actually has a hint of Christmas in it, but it's around for about 5 minutes and then they completely forget about it. I can't lie, the opening song about Flanders is a banger.
I hate his guts and Flanders is his name.
Unfortunately, however, the episode then takes a complete nosedive and the entire Simpsons family decide, let's forget about Christmas and let's just go to the ranch. This is now the second episode in a row that has basically nothing to do with Christmas. The Simpsons writers, what are you doing here? This is awful. The rest of this episode literally just goes on about cowboy adventures and beavers. Yes, I'm not joking, there is a lot of beavers in this episode. I did appreciate the Gollum reference, that was pretty cool. But apart from that, and Maggie's absolutely killer moves on the bed, this episode has nothing going for it. It is a good episode still, but just not Christmassy.
Christmas crowds is what I hate.
No time left to procrastinate.
I didn't even know this one existed until I started this video. The Simpsons Christmas is a short film from 1988 from the Tracy Ullman Show. So this is like before the first episode of The Simpsons ever released. But I kind of liked it. It follows Bart dishing out a Christmas time rap. Sadly, the only version that I can show you is this blurry version that I found on YouTube because it literally basically doesn't exist anymore. There were some quite amusing moments for the wrong reasons. I think Homer literally mixed up Lisa and Maggie's names.
Oh, Maggie. Oh, Lisa. Oh, little Bartholomew.
And Itchy and Scratchy also make a quick cameo on the TV screen. Graphically, because this is 1988, it's pretty shoddy, but actually it's not that bad overall, and it's probably worth a watch.
To move your ass.
And let me pet, 'cause
Christmas Eve is here.
I'm sorry, they used the Wilhelm scream. That's an instant .1 in my book. Unfortunately, again though, this episode really isn't that Christmassy. Bart went missing on a family road trip and actually fell into an abandoned bunker, where Sideshow Bob and Milhouse apparently find him, and then there's some antics that ensue. That's basically it, sadly, and I love Sideshow Bob. He literally is one of my favourite Simpsons characters, but even he couldn't save this. Just overall, a little bit of a letdown.
I'm the mascot of an evil corporation.
And so, we've entered the mouse era. This is quite possibly the most random thing The Simpsons ever done. And they've been going for about 36 seasons. This 4-minute short uses one of the best Christmas songs. It features the Bocellis, it has Maggie doing a Love Actually reference, and shows Ralph celebrating the complete wrong holiday in typical Ralph fashion. It's a very, very good short, but because it's a short film, it can't go much higher than some of the actual full episodes.
Why is the Santa's suit so snug?
Yeah, this episode is kind of mid. It starts out in the future, but then immediately travels back to the past, which is just, what was the point in going to the future anyway? Homer is being falsely accused of destroying the power plant after Mr. Burns plugs too many chargers into one plug socket. It's literally sparking. Why is he plugging more in there? And because of this, the town once again hates The Simpsons, specifically Homer. I don't know, it just seems a little bit tiring, especially when they made an entire movie about this very concept. But then in this episode, everything suddenly gets resolved and everything's fine and dandy again. It's really just not the best episode.
Grr, why should I care? It's all humbug.
My eyebrows.
This episode was a weird one because it starts off with Mr. Burns commercializing the First Church of Springfield. Lisa then goes on a journey to become a Buddhist, and the episode ends with Mr. Burns making a massive ton of profit off the church, and everyone's just okay with it. There are some very funny moments in this episode, but sadly, I just didn't click with it as much as I'd have liked to. It was very cool to see different religions doing their own holiday celebrations, though.
I've jacked my prices up so high, but there's no junk these subs won't buy.
Honestly, this episode starts off with a pretty interesting idea. The snow is only falling in Springfield. There's no snow in the rest of America. America, so all of the tourism comes to Springfield for Christmas. They could have done so much with that concept, but instead they flopped it. The episode really just decays and goes downhill really fast. Like, by the end, I wasn't even satisfied with what happened. Lisa went on like a Christmas present giving arc, which I just didn't care for. And generally, this episode just felt very flat in comparison to others. It's a real shame.
Last year's eggnog, a green hot dog.
Christmas Eve is here.
This episode is actually structured different because it features a bunch of Christmas stories. Unfortunately though, the only good one is the Muppets Christmas Carol story. All the rest are absolute crap. I would happily watch that Muppets one 1,000 times over, but because I'd have to sit through the other 3 first, I'm just not interested. Hang on a minute, is that Katy Perry? The whole "it's been a long run, let's end the Simpsons" gag was very funny because they had no idea they'd be doing 14 more seasons after this very episode. And Mo and Katy Perry are acting a little bit freaky here. I don't know what's going on here. We don't need to see that. As a film nerd, this room tone moment was very funny. This episode is fine. I neither loved it nor hated it. We follow Krusty, who has a daughter. Hold on a minute. That is brand new news to me. That might be the most groundbreaking news from The Simpsons I've ever heard. Since when did Krusty the Clown have a daughter? But seeing Krusty sort of sell out his entire brand was a bit weird. And then seeing a non-violent version of both Itchy and Scratchy and the Krusty the Clown show was a bit strange. However, I think the best part of this episode was by far the side story with Maggie going around and slaughtering all of the elf dolls. I don't blame her, they are very creepy. This episode features probably one of the most bizarre couch gags I've maybe ever seen. It's another Christmas Eve special where Homer is once again kicked out of the house. I've seen so many of these Christmas episodes now, by the way, that I have no idea if this is a repeated concept or not. It's just all blurred into one. But even still, it just felt a little bit unoriginal. Seeing Maude alive in The Simpsons in these later seasons was so odd to me. And I love how Marge just walks into Ned Flanders' house whilst watching Homer delivering Maude's baby. It's such a random thing to happen, but it was quite funny. At least there are some Christmas themed aspects, which is better than some of the episodes. Hello.
Grumpy Christmas.
I was expecting to like this episode a bit more than I did. It wasn't bad by any means, but it still wasn't perfect. Even though Marge rolled up her sleeves. She doesn't have sleeves, but she rolled them up. Jill basically moves in with the Simpsons for Christmas and well overstays his welcome. But not only did he overstay his welcome in the episode, he overstayed his welcome on my screen and in my eyes, because he actually did start to get on my nerves as much as he did Homer and Marge's. Which unfortunately doesn't make for the best viewing experience after like sort of 15 minutes or so. It's still a great episode, don't get me wrong, but it's just tedious towards the end. At least we do have the Grumples in this episode to make up for it.
These holiday cookies swell my fat.
Right. They've replaced Maggie's iconic orange star outfit with a lilac one. I've never been more angry. This one's a weird episode. It actually centers around Santa's little helper. And apparently, the dog has PTSD and it's all about him trying to overcome this. Besides the occasional amusing gag that they do throw into this episode, it just hits with a wave of nostalgia because it literally references the very first Simpsons episode. Which unfortunately for me, it worked like a treat. This is literally way higher on the list than it probably should be. What was crazy to me is seeing the difference between the very first episode clip and the episode as it is now. The animation has changed dramatically. It was interesting to at least see Santa's little helper's perspective on the episode, but other than that, it's fine. Yeah, it's pretty good. Right, the first proper mention of Christmas in this episode was literally halfway through, which is not good, but I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt because the Funzos are in this episode and I love the Funzos, especially in their robot form. They just look awesome. You can also start to see the beginnings of sort of like classic Simpsons storytelling, which I kind of like. Mr. Burns becoming Scrooge is very funny and also slightly ironic. It's lower down on this ranking purely because it doesn't mention Christmas until a little bit into the episode, but when it does, it absolutely slaps.
Even though we're not Gentile, we'll get together for a while.
Oh no, they did Baby Shark not once, but twice. I did like how they kept up with Maggie's hatred for gnomes in this episode. That was a good continuation. And Mr. Burns sitting on Santa Sideshow Bob's lap was something I did not expect to see or needed to see. That was weird. It's also weird that Sideshow Bob is actually a good person in this episode. This is a rare thing in The Simpsons. Like, he's not a good character. But these subtle changes I actually really enjoyed. I loved the Sideshow Bob and Cassandra musical number they had towards the end. They covered It's Cold Outside, and I've just got to say it, all of the Simpsons covers of the Christmas music absolutely slap. They're so good. As expected with a few of these later season episodes, it does end a little bit flat, which sadly does make it a bit hit or miss, but honestly, it's not that bad, and I would definitely watch this one again.
Christmas is a family day.
I told Grandpa we'd be away.
We've done it, we've reached the top 10, and now in 10th spot we have Miracle on Evergreen Terrace. This episode mainly follows Bart as he accidentally burns down the family Christmas tree, which leads to a spiraling Christmas lie that they got burgled, leading to the entirety of Springfield donating over $15,000. Obviously, this lie eventually gets completely rumbled. However, the ending just leaves things hanging on a weird note. Everyone in Springfield who hates The Simpsons because of this suddenly is okay with them again because they stole every single belonging in their house. I'm not making that up, that genuinely happened. And what did The Simpsons do about this? They find a washcloth left on the floor and they start play fighting with it. I'm not joking. That is the end of the episode. It's just odd.
He's at the door. Let's hit the floor, cause Christmas Eve is here.
Bonus point for the Star Wars intro. This episode starts with Black Friday, which is something that The Simpsons have never delved into before, which was really cool, so another bonus point for originality. It was very refreshing seeing Marge battle it out against Cletus and Jill for a plasma screen TV.
Jingle bells, we got the TV. Now the only thing we lack is electricity.
The second half of the episode actually kind of switches it up on us a little bit. The Simpsons book a last-minute holiday to Florida, but when they arrive at where they're staying, it's an absolute dump. There were quite a few good laughs to be had here, and overall, it was an entertaining watch. But is it better than the season 15 special?
You're a hero. Homer J.
No, it wasn't. Sometimes an episode just has like one moment that just makes it so much better than the others. And in this one, it was the Grinch. Homer literally becomes a Christmas Grinch in this episode, which is so funny. He even sings his own version of the song. I mean, overall, the episode is quite simplistic about Homer trying to best Flanders in a competition to be the best person in Springfield. But you're telling me You're a Mean One, Homer J, is not lyrical genius? Obviously, all of this behavior from Homer is stemming from him watching A Christmas Carol and him having his moment of realization like he does in the movie. It's nothing I wouldn't expect in a Christmas episode, but it was pretty good. Mo also attempts his annual jump from City Hall. I'm sorry, Mo, maybe next year. Strangely, this episode has more of a cohesive vibe than most of the others. It follows Homer after being kicked out of the house on Christmas Eve, so this concept was reused multiple times. There are genuinely some very wholesome moments in this episode though, especially this rare nice moment between Homer and Flanders. These guys normally don't really get along, at least Homer doesn't get along with Flanders. So seeing them actually embrace each other, it was really sweet. Despite it being narratively weak in places, and the concept of the episode not being the strongest, it simply was just still a great episode. Glory to the newborn king. Oh, this one is good. I was a bit skeptical going into this one because it is just another collection of short stories, but each one was so unique and interesting that I actually had a great time. The first story is more traditional. It follows the birth of Jesus in Simpsons form. This then leads into a Grandpa and Mr. Burns castaway storyline, which was awesome. And it finally ends with a Christmas musical. I'm a musical guy. I love musicals, so this was always going to work on me. Just super entertaining all around. And shout out Mo, who is miraculously still alive after sledding through oncoming traffic. What a king. We're getting to the good episodes now, and what if I told you that this episode actually aired in season 32? That's right, this top 5 contender, A Springfield Summer Christmas for Christmas, aired in December 2020. Good God, I forgot how bad Marge's voice actor got in these later seasons.
I don't know what goes on in everything, Bagel, so I just took a stab at it.
That sounds painful. I can't believe I'm saying this though about a modern episode of The Simpsons, but it was genuinely really enjoyable. The whole episode is a parody of the classic Hallmark Christmas movies, but in this one, they are making a Hallmark Christmas movie. We've got Hallmark Inception going on here. It's really well done, and it involves many other members of Springfield, not just focusing on the Simpsons family. Skinner most of all steps up, having a very big part being the lover romance character, something I never expected from him, but here we go. And I really enjoyed the witty moments from the Simpsons characters as well. Marge being all up in your face, Homer finding anything white to grind up into small pellets of snow, or the storyline with Bart not being able to sleep at all because everything in the town is disrupted. It never felt boring, it never felt annoying or tedious. It was genuinely a great Christmas episode, and I'd be happy to say it's one of the best episodes they've made in the later seasons of the show. Remember when I said this list was going to be biased? Well, this is definitely one of those occasions. This episode is a classic snowed-in story featuring Skinner and most of Springfield Elementary. That's 2 Skinner episodes in a row, by the way. What is going on? He is like the king of Christmas right now. It's like the classic Simpsons with that Skinner versus Bart rivalry before Sideshow Bob started popping up. The Vietnam flashbacks from Skinner were very funny. I'm pretty sure there was an Apocalypse Now reference in there, which is even better. But nothing made me laugh more in this episode than Ralph sleeping with a scabbing brush as a teddy. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this isn't a good episode at all. But Skinner has some iconic voice lines in this one. I was smiling and having a great time. And honestly, that's sometimes enough for me. This whole episode is set in the future where Bart is a washed up father, Lisa is a worried mother, and Maggie is a famous pop star. It's an episode with witty callbacks and really entertaining moments with many of the cast now that they are a lot older in comparison. I particularly enjoyed the part with Apu and the octuplets. There's like so many children now. And also the cryogenic part was really cool. It's nice to see some of those old characters still remaining old and not just forgotten. It was definitely one of the best middle season episodes I've watched in a long time, to the point where it might even rival some of the classic episodes. But now we move on to the episode most people have probably been waiting for. What can I say? Sometimes the OG is just one of the best things going. It's the same with Fortnite, it's the same with Home Alone, and it's now the same with The Simpsons. Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire is actually the very first episode of The Simpsons that was ever aired on TV. It originally wasn't meant to be, but they decided this episode was so good that they wanted it to be the first episode to ever release. And my god, were they right. This episode cooked. Immediately, we start out with Maggie in her iconic Star outfit. This is perfect. We're already off to a flying start here. But the episode as a whole is structured perfectly. We are introduced to every character and what they're about. We then get to see the family dynamic and then the fallout of the family. It has some really heartwarming moments and captures everything a Christmas episode should have. Homer is obviously the forefront of this episode because it's the first episode ever released. And the way he actually got emotional at not delivering on a good Christmas this year actually was quite heartfelt. The surprise of the Christmas miracle being Santa's little helper was one of the cutest things. And overall, I just think it's a really well written episode that I can probably watch time and time again. However, this is only number 2. This is not the best Christmas episode that The Simpsons have ever made. No, the best Simpsons Christmas episode and my number 1 spot goes to...
You wouldn't even say it.
Like a light bulb.
Marge Be Not Proud. This episode has everything. The classic Simpsons art style. It's got great nostalgia on rewatch. Amazing character development, specifically around Bart and Marge. And it has an intriguing and heartfelt story which just encapsulates everything that you want in a Christmas episode. Bart attempts to shoplift the Brainstorm video game that is releasing for him this Christmas, after Marge says she's not gonna buy it for him because she feels it's too violent. Which personally, as a kid, I always thought was very mean of her to do that. This of course seems to get him in a lot of trouble with the security guard, who absolutely has it out for Bart, by the way. But what can you expect from a guy who literally is eating a lunch lead in this episode? Anyway, this episode has cameos from Mario, Luigi, and Donkey Kong. That is cool. It has some hilarious Milhouse and Luann Van Houten scenes, which still make me wet myself to this day. But packaging all of this up is the ending of this episode. Seeing Bart go on his little arc after being found out for shoplifting is so wholesome. And once he gives Marge her present to recover their relationship, Marge gives him another present, another video game, but not Brainstorm. Bart is given the wrong video game, and this is the best decision the Simpsons writers ever made. Giving Bart Brainstorm would have completely ruined the entire episode's message. But by giving him the golfing game, it made sure the stakes of the episode remained intact, whilst also giving an emotional and bittersweet ending to the story too. Throw in the fact that Troy McClure is in this episode, and we get the awesome post-credit scene in this, then I hope you can understand why that I have said that Marge Be Not Proud is the best Christmas Simpsons episode that has ever been made. And there we have it, my full ranking of all 25 The Simpsons Christmas episodes. But of course, Disney Plus just released their new Simpsons two-parter for this year. I knew that they were going to go big for the 35th anniversary, but I had no clue they were going to cook that hard. The episode has 2 main storylines, the first being that Homer has been hypnotized into believing that he's Santa by Darren Brown, yes, the legendary magician from the UK, and the second is focused on Flanders having a panic attack about whether or not God actually exists, which I'm surprised they haven't actually dabbled with that concept before. I enjoyed how the story not only felt fresh, but it also kept up with the times of The Simpsons. For example, you have Ned talking about losing both Maude and Edna, which is a very recent thing. I loved how some lesser side characters too also had big moments. Ralph literally becoming Homer's elf in this episode. Whoever decided to do that, you are a genius. You need a raise. Rod and Todd also have a massive part to play. But most of all, Professor Frink, man. Bro casually made an Ocean Gate reference and just walked with it. It was incredible. He was a great part of this episode. Look, I don't want to talk too much more about it because I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but trust me when I say that this is probably a top 10 episode and definitely worth a watch. And with that covered, do you agree with my ranking? What would you change? Let me know in the comments and I will see you in the next video.